Cool, man. So yeah, my first question is, because you're the first ever classic physique Mr. Olympia, I wanted to ask you, what is classic physique to you personally, and what is different about it? How does it differentiate from like bodybuilding or men's physique or other uh, I guess divisions?
Well, it's bodybuilding. The judges are supposed to judge more of the posing and the presentation part of it, more of the symmetry, and not so much the size. I guess supposedly size is probably third on the list to a certain degree compared to the open bodybuilding. Um, I guess because the judges thought, and I thought myself, because I retired for 10 years, because when I started, there was only just men's open bodybuilding and women's bodybuilding. There was no fitness figure or anything else. And so, I always trained to put on as much size without, getting my waist big or compromising my symmetry. And conditioning is where the discipline's in. You know, that's what like full commitment is how can someone come to competition. And so for me, I wasn't a big guy, so the conditioning part was really what I focused on. And symmetry, with my training and a lot of his genetics too, um, that was kind of a wrestling background. I wrestled in college, and so that gave me the discipline because I used to cut weight all the time. So when I got into bodybuilding, it was something comparable, if not easier, because I used to run stadiums and wrestle for hours and then lift weights and not be able to eat anything. So when bodybuilding came along, I just had to eat real clean and just eat a lot of it. So I really enjoyed that part of it. But the classic division is it's supposed to be judged on symmetry, um, balance, conditioning, and presentation. As far as your posing, and then size. If all else is equal, and the bigger person is gonna win. But in the open division, it started getting a little crazy with just size, and guys' waists were getting big. Started getting the bubble guts. They didn't care about the presentation. The posing was like they were guest posing. There wasn't really a lot of thought put into the music or the different transitions between posing. It just wasn't graceful, and so it was losing a lot of mainstream appeal, especially to the younger generations coming up, especially with the social media coming up. So they knew they needed to make a change, and they went back to proportionate symmetry and all that. And they didn't really hit it on the nose at first. It was a great attempt, and that's when they started the men's physique. So it went the total opposite way, where you didn't even show your legs, and there was no posing. I mean, there's just three positions really, and the positions aren't really poses. You kind of just stand there in like four different angles. And they got creative with it and tried to do a lot more than what they were given. I have to give them credit for that. Just the transitions of getting into those positions, so the judges can judge your waist, your shoulder ratio, the abs, your back development, and that's pretty much it. Because there's no posing and you don't show your legs, so it's half the conditioning. And the hard part of getting ready for competition to really get in shape is your legs. You know, that's the hard part. A lot of guys can be ready for a men's physique show almost year round, um, if they didn't have to get their legs in condition. Get those glutes shredded because that's where a lot of the body fat is. That's the hardest part to come off is the glutes. So I've always been known for being more of a classic physique, even when I was competing in bodybuilding. I was I was at the end of a generation like Labrada and those guys, where they were scoring accordingly how they should. You know, a smaller guy could beat a bigger guy. It happened all the time if he was more complete and he had better presentation and condition. And then it became about the mass monsters and the freak shows, and you had to be extremely, extremely on the money to beat a bigger guy that was not even close to your conditioning or your symmetry. It was just about the sheer mass. And so they went back trying to fix that with the men's physique. Didn't really hit it on the mark, but it got very popular because there's a lot of guys that have great physiques that like to train, that have nice symmetry, that wanted to compete, and that was kind of their introductory. But after a certain point, they were getting big, like you can see, and there's nowhere else to transition to. So they came out with the classic physique. I remember the promoter, and I was already retired. I owned gyms, and I was always, training because for me, that's just what I love to do. I always still looked at the sport, was in the sport. I was still doing photo shoots, but I just wasn't competing because I felt, I'm not going to destroy my body chasing that size. Because I see a lot of my peers like Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, and those guys trying to catch Ronnie Coleman, and they look great, but they'll never catch them, and they're kind of just ruining their health and compromising a lot. And so I wasn't going to do that route. And then they came out with the classic physique, and I was already ready because I was already always training for proportion symmetry, um, and my presentation was always good. I come from a breakdancing. I was one of the best breakdancers in the world at one time. I had a manager. I was going on tours with a lot of different musicians, and so I was always good at performing on stage, my balance and everything from the wrestling and some martial arts. So for me, I love the posing aspect of it, especially to the music. It was performance. Once you get in shape, now it's time to display it. And it was really a way to showcase my flexibility, my balance, my athleticism, rather than just standing on stage being muscle bound. And so when they said they're going to come out with this division, I was like, and I would love to do that, even though I was already in my 40s, but I took care of myself, and that's the thing that I want to really emphasize on is age is just pretty much how you wear and tear your body. That's what ages your body. It's not necessarily time. It's the wear and tear on it. And I always tell people I'm like a classic car with very low miles. I mean, some guys could be a brand new Ferrari. You drive the hell out of it. That thing, you got grind the gears and just really abuse it. It's not going to last very long. So no matter what the age of the body is, it's if you wear it out, it's not going to last long. It's going to perform like an old body. So that's the key: is take your time, with it. And so I came back in the classic division, and it just fit right in. In some ways, a lot of the judges knew me for being in the magazine covers and competing as a top national level amateur, and I was on covers already, and I wasn't even a pro, and it was because of my symmetry and classic look. And so when they had this division, they asked me, since I was still active in the sport, doing covers and a lot of ads and stuff for different supplement companies and everything, going to expos. So they knew I was still viable and around. So the promoter of the Olympia at the time, Robin Chang, came up and says, Danny, we got this new division and we'd love for you to do it. And if you actually like get your butt in gear and really, really want it, I don't see anyone beating you. We'd love to have you as the spokesperson for it to set the standard. And he told me that, and I was like, wow, okay, I don't know if that's a little biased, but they knew what they were looking for, and I'd like to think since they came to me and kind of made that statement to me, I was like, well, shit, I don't know what this is going to be about, but I'm just going to go and look in what I think is my best, and I ended up winning the very first pro show ever that they had for the classic division, and then 6 months later, I went to Olympia and I won that.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. When you're thinking about, your training, because like in open bodybuilding, it's real simple. Like mass monsters eat more, lift heavier weights, get bigger. When you're talking about proportion and symmetry, what are you thinking about? Like when you're training, what are you looking at, and what are you focusing on? Like, oh, I need to. Were you like measuring your neck and your arms and your calves and making sure they're the same size? Like, what is proportion and symmetry exactly? Like, and how?
Well, proportion and symmetry may sound similar, but they're a little bit different. I got it explained to me years ago by Frank Zane, which is, he's known for truly a classic physique, won many Olympia titles, um, and he was in that era, the Arnold era. So he was saying there's symmetry, which if you turn a picture upside down and everything looks proportionate, that's how you tell someone's symmetry. Where the waist ratio, length of it, where the waist is, and the upper body and the lower body has to have a certain ratio to it. And when you turn that picture upside down, you can really expose that and see it. It's very interesting. You should try it. You think someone looks pretty, balanced, and you turn a picture over and you see, oh, wow, I didn't notice it. There was something a little bit off, and the legs might be shorter than the torso. The waist might be longer, you know,
Oh.
and so things like that. Or the legs might be a little bit too long and the torso shorter, or the legs are shorter and the torso is longer. And so
Mm.
that's a really good factor, to kind of gauge to look at. And it does work. It's really cool.
So is that just a genetic thing? That right there, what you're
It's
talking?
all, yeah, totally. It's
So
all
you have to
genetic.
have the God gave you the genetics for this.
That helps. Definitely. We all know that. And that's with all sports. But it doesn't mean that you're going to dominate, because the person that works hard and is consistent and studies it can beat, a lot of times, the guy that's genetically gifted. There's fighters that are genetically great fighters, but they might not train as hard. They might not have as much heart. They might not want it as much. They might not be willing to go till death, and they'll lose to someone that's not as talented. You see it all the time in all sports. And but you get that discipline and that will combined with the genetics, you're unstoppable. You know, and so the genetics, that's a factor. There's also things that you can do to hide it. Your lack of symmetry and balance. Um, and then the proportion part would be if you're proportioned, if both arms are proportioned, the ratio of like maybe the shoulder to waist, or the quads, to the hamstrings, because sometimes most people are quad dominant. So that's proportions. So you see the difference between symmetry and proportions?
Yeah.
Symmetry is the structure, proportions is how you put the muscle on. Like
Mm.
some guys could be huge freaking chest and their shoulders are small. That's not proportion. Or shoulders are huge, and the chest is small. Or arms are huge and the chest and the shoulders are small. Or they have a high lats and their waist looks longer because their lat sweep doesn't go all the way down. So there's a lot to the proportion part of it, to have it balanced. So you can't train too much of a certain part that is going to overpower other parts, and it'll make you not proportionate. Your quads, like Sean Roden, for years I've known Sean, and he just couldn't, of course, Phil Heath was an amazing athlete, so he wasn't going to beat Phil until he had his shit straight, like solid. And one of the things that was keeping him from doing that, it was his quads just overpowered his upper body. And his quads just grew a lot faster than his upper body. So he had to learn how to kind of train his legs, his quads, without putting the size on it, more detail, and try to just wait until his upper body caught up to it. And that's what people don't realize. You can't, as I get older too, I realize I can't, and I've always kind of known this, but even now so, because I don't have a lot of time and I can't train as hard because I don't want to wear my body out. I need a lot more time to recover also, is I start realizing I don't need to give as many days as I do to each body part equally. My back is genetically maybe from wrestling or just the gymnastics and sports, but my back, my tie-ins go all the way down. The thickness, the detail is very genetically gifted for me, and it responds fast. So I'm not going to give as much sets and reps or even days of training as I do something like I need to put on my arms, because my back will just grow really fast, a lot faster than my other body parts. And so I'm just going to get that out of balance where even if I bring some size up on my arms, but my back, I'm training my back just as hard and giving it just as much priority, my back's going to get even bigger. So then it's going to make my arms look like it didn't even get any bigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You really got to prioritize because all your body parts grow in different speeds. So
Did you
just
always do that?
what's up?
Did you always do that?
I've always done that. Yeah,
Always.
Sean Ray used to write about it when he was competing, and he was a little bit before my time. I think I was in high school, and Sean had just turned pro and actually was killing it in the pro division um, early, his first few years when I was still in high school. So when I was coming up, he was talking about instinctive training.
Yeah,
Where,
yeah. I was going to ask you about that because I read that you did
right.
instinctive training and dieting. And I was going to ask you if that's what you did.
Yes, but you have to be careful with that because that's also could be an excuse to be lazy. So you have to ask yourself, is this instinctive training or am I just being lazy at this point? You know,
Yeah.
and a lot of times it is being lazy, to be honest with you. And I'll always tell myself, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just do it. I always say my trick to myself is just to do a little bit of something, even when I don't feel like doing it. And sometimes it's just starting. And those are a lot of times end up being my best workouts, you know? Like if I'm sitting in my car, I'm just like so tired from work or the training before or my diet. I'm like, man, you tell yourself, you know what? Maybe it's better if I just rest. And sometimes that could be the case, but a lot of times it's especially if you're anabolic taking gear, the body doesn't really need the rest. It's the mind, you know.
Yeah.
If you're natty, then maybe so, depending on how much you're training and your genetic potential to recuperate. But it's usually in your head. So an energy level a lot of times is tied into emotional level, you know, and so you
Yeah.
have to really think about that. Listen to some music, do something to kind of motivate you. Look at the guys you're going to compete against, and saying, "Wow, I bet they're not sitting in their car thinking they should go train right now because they're a little bit tired."
Yeah.
Just things like that, and to try to motivate you, or text a few people, see what they're training in the gym, and sometimes that would be a good thing. You know, you go in there and jump in a few sets with them. Even though I don't really train with a specific partner, I train more. Uh, and I'm very fortunate to be over at Gold's Gym for most of my career, Gold's Venice, the Mecca, because everyone's always rolling through there at really high caliber, you know, athletes. So I can just walk in any day and see Dexter training chest, and he'll be on a machine that I really like. I'm like, "Did you start, bro? Can I jump in?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I'll hit that machine. He's gonna go to a different machine, and I hate that machine. It hurts my shoulders, or it doesn't really do anything for me. So I won't do it with him. You see what I mean? And I might find
Yeah.
someone else like Sean Roden doing chest that day, and he's doing a couple exercises like the Smith machine on an incline, and I love doing those, and I'll jump in and do it with him. So for me, I don't like to waste a lot of time on exercises that I'm not feeling the areas that I need it for myself, and everybody's body structure is different, so some things work better, and some people need other things more in that area, in certain areas than you might. So you have to really pick and choose rather than just going through the motions. Because I've gone through workout partners where they like this machine after we just finished. And I'm like, man, I was getting a good pump. We're going to move to that one now. And I said, that one I know it does not do anything for me, you know? But then you'll just do it. You burn calories. Yeah, you might stimulate and get some blood flow in there, but it's not getting that good pump where you're feeling like the growth in the area that you really need to really accentuate your physique. So I'll say, no, I'm good, bro. You know, if you need a spot, let me know. I'm going to stay on this machine because I'm still feeling it. I might stay on that machine for another 4 sets because I'm getting something out of it. And that's what people don't realize. You stick to certain numbers of sets and things all the time. And a lot of times you just might be going through the motions, you know? So that's kind of part of instinctive training that we're talking about.
What would that look like? Like, say it's Monday, the beginning of the week, and you're saying that your back is super strong, your arms are a little lagging behind. I don't know what your other body parts were like. So how does that look like through the week? Like, you're going to the gym, do you just decide on Monday, like, I gotta hit my arms because that's what I need to work on, so I'm gonna do arm day? Or, like, what does that look like on a
Yeah.
weekly
Well,
basis?
let's say my back is really strong, and which I'm gonna tell you the opposite of what a lot of people have, what they do incorrectly, in my opinion. But they'll do a lot of movements for back, and their back is behind, so they'll do a lot of back, but yet their arms are great. And usually that's the case. I've trained with Lee Priest, guys like Gary Stratton, just incredible athletes, but their arms were so dominant that it hurt their back development.
Paul Dillette. I heard that you trained with Paul Dillette.
Yeah, I love training Paul to that because Paul would love to bullshit, and he takes forever in between sets. Because he's a big dude,
Yeah.
and Paul was he was big, and he was in condition year round. He was amazing. Like genetically, I would have to say Paul is one of the most gifted genetic athletes I've ever met. He was made for bodybuilding. Because the amount of effort he put in it and what he got out was just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So Paul had asthma too, so he took a little bit longer in between sets, and he would love to bullshit in between sets. And sometimes when I just want to go in the gym and get a little pump, and I'm not really serious about being intense, Paul was the dude to train with.
Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, his genetics were so crazy. I couldn't believe he wasn't Mr. Olympia because he had, like that crucifix pose he did. It was like that's the
Bro, he
best
was
ever.
6 foot. Paul was 6 foot with the
His
small
calves
waist,
even.
wide shoulders, calves, hamstrings. I mean, you name it. The only thing he needed more was, I would say, detail on his back. His
Yeah.
back, the size was good, but for some reason, like everybody has like hard points. Like some guys, the fat will store on like their love handle area, but they could
Mhm.
be shredded in their arms and even their legs, right? And
Yeah.
some guys could even have like fat on the front part of their stomach, but the legs could be shredded, and it's everybody carries it different. Me, I could be lean, like almost competition ready, easily, pretty quick, but the fat thickness is stored on my glutes, and for me to really get my glutes shredded, I have to really deplete everything else. So everybody's a little bit. Some guys could be having love handles, and they pull up their shorts, and their freaking glutes are striated.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. So Paul's problem was the skin on his back was very thick. It was weird, but on his quads and his legs, it was like paper thin year
Yeah.
round. It was crazy, like feathering everything. But then he hit a back double bicep. The structure, the size, the thickness was there, but the skin was just thick. So he really, really had to do more cardio and pretty much everything that he had to dig deep for was to get his back detail, get that skin thick, like that thickness to get thinner. And that's just genetics too.
Do you think if he would have done that, he would have been Mr. Olympia? If he would have got his back to
Well, see,
match
the
everything
problem
else?
the problem is, luckily, it set my standards very high because my era was Chris Cormier, Flex Wheeler, Lee Priest, all these guys. You know, so it like any one of them could be Mr. Olympia right now, no problem, hands down. There's just such a deep talent pool. It was just, that's why, you know, the standard for myself and what the ideal for my physique was definitely elevated compared to, I think, if I would have came into the sport now, you know, um, it might have been a lot less intimidating if I came into the sport. I didn't have the kind of genetics I did. So in a way, you're probably getting a lot more people in the sport because people see like Flex Wheeler at his prime, and they're like, "Oh Jesus, there's no way. That's
Yeah.
impossible." You know?
How do you compete against that? Yeah, when you were talking about proportion and symmetry, I was just thinking Flex Wheeler, like he's perfect in that. Like, I mean, that's perfect, right? Like that's the perfect proportion and symmetry probably of
Yeah.
anybody.
Arnold said that Flex Wheeler, not just not winning the Olympia, but literally Arnold Schwarzenegger said Flex Wheeler was the best bodybuilder, complete wise, to ever step on stage.
Wow.
The freaking cartoon, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, Flex had issues with his glutes too to get in condition, kind of like mine. And I think that has a lot to do with more of the chemistry to a certain degree, which is genetics, but um, like not to get too much into the science of it, but there's certain like um, estrogens and stuff like that that
Yeah.
will convert more of than others, you
Mm.
know, until you find the right combination of like certain anti-estrogens or certain anabolics that might um, emphasize that, you know, or lead to more of it, that type of estrogen in your system
Yeah.
that keeps that fat in the glute area. And until I really, really try to get like super, super shredded, I looked more into that and I found out that that was very similar to Flex. And speaking to Flex and his nutritionist and stuff like that, we kind of had the same problem because we had that nice fullness, that nice roundness, the muscle bellies and stuff. Um, but it was the glute area that held kind of the fat, and that was like the hardest thing to go.
So you just have to get super lean to get that,
Right,
and figure the estrogen thing out too.
right, right.
So is that with water retention? Is that what you're talking about then?
That's water retention and fat, and that's usually kind of go hand in hand. You
Mm.
know, more body fat, the more water retention you'll keep in that area too. And that's the thing is like when they first came out with the men's physique, I mean the classic physique division, our shorts were lower, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
trunks are much higher now, and so the trunks are a lot higher now. So I didn't really have to have the shredded glutes because that's one of the things they try to stay away from because they thought the bodybuilding was getting healthy.
Yeah.
So they have shorter trunks because that might push them to be a little bit too extreme, right?
Which is
Because
great,
classic
probably,
physique,
huh? Were you like, yes?
right? Yeah, no, exactly. When I got back into the sport, I had done so much more research and knowledge about just my body and things that other people were doing because science more information. And so the irony is, I would sacrifice having shredded glutes, which was more of the classic look, anyways, when I competed. It was
Mm.
just a cleaner, you know what I mean by cleaner look? It wasn't
Yeah.
that like trend grainy, like
Like
your
fuller,
face and
look
everything,
fuller.
like you're fucking like death,
Yeah.
you know? You're just like crazy grainy. So I sacrificed that for more of the fullness,
Mm.
which kind of
More shape.
blended into my lack of having shredded glutes, but it wasn't such a contrast of having shredded glutes and everything else was kind of a cleaner look. So it just kind of flowed. And when I got back into it, I think because I had muscle maturity also for having so much time off, but being consistent with my training and diet, that had the muscle maturity, and I was able to get shredded glutes. And the irony is, I came in so freaking peeled and shredded. When I stripped down backstage at the Olympia and all the other competitors were back there, one of my friends, his mouth, he was competing, said to another competitor, he's like, oh man, he's not going to do well. They're not going to reward that. That's freaking like freaky grainy. And I started going,
Wow.
but I knew these judges, you cannot put the genie back in the bottle. Even though they tell you that, they are not going to reward someone for being less conditioned. so, so I was
They just
not going to
can't,
make
right? You
that
can't do
mistake.
it.
If I would have lifted up my trunks, bro, I would have had striated glutes because I did. That morning, I woke up before prejudging. I got up like 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night to check my water and how I was looking. And I was like, whoa, 6 in the morning hit, checked it. My glutes were so shredded. I wish I would have took video of myself because I've never seen it like that before. The only time I seen nothing like that since was when I had COVID and I was on a super calorie deficit. I got so shredded. All thin too. I probably lost like 20 pounds, you know. But yeah,
Wow.
I was shredded. I was like, shit. And some people even said that they could see the striations in my glutes through my trunks.
Oh my gosh, man. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I wish I could have did that when they had the smaller trunks, you know, that show the glutes. Now you have to have shredded glutes in the classic division.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's like they're pulling up the trunks now, just like the open division.
Wow, and that's not classic at all, right? Because the classic guys didn't have that.
It's not classic, but that's how everything progressed. Because these judges, the same judges, are judging the open division. So you know,
They
when I
just see it as a
those
conditioning marker.
it's hard. It almost in their brains is like, oh, he's not conditioned. But yet you take a few years back and they would say, oh, that's perfect. It happens to all divisions, all the divisions. Look how big the men's physique guys got.
Yeah, huge. I mean, huge.
That was supposed to be like pool party body.
Yeah. No, they're so big. I mean, it's
Right. It's so
unreal.
big that just this year, just this month, they put that weight cap on them, which they never had. You heard that, right?
Yes, I did. I'm friends with Dave Palumbo, and he got
Right.
into it with Bob Ciccarillo about it.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you
They're
saw
gonna
those
get it.
videos, but because
They're
he
gonna
was
get it.
saying what they're going to do is just stop training their legs. They're going to stop training their legs so their upper bodies could be, you know what I mean? Because they're not getting judged on their legs. But Bob was saying they're still going to judge the legs. But how do you even judge the legs when they're covered by shorts? It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense, really,
Well, they started wearing tighter and tighter, more fitting trunks too as it went on.
to kind of show the legs.
Right.
So I
And,
guess, yeah, maybe they'll judge it. I don't know. What do you
well,
think?
but the thing is, it's not in the criteria.
I don't
And then
like
and
men's physique.
then,
Do you
and
like
then,
men's
and then,
physique?
and then you can just get shorts that really accentuate like your sweep, and they could even put like padding in it.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, I was thinking about that too. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of men's physique? I think they should. I don't like it personally. I mean, it's like, why don't you have a guy in a suit up there?
Well, this is the thing is I told you they came out with the men's physique was the answer to the extreme
Oh
bodybuilding.
yeah, okay. So it's good. It's a good
Well,
progression.
no, but the thing is that if they would have came out with the classic to actually uh, deal with that issue, they would have nailed it. But it took them a couple tries because you don't really hit it. They would say, okay, this is an idea that we can do to get the younger guys in there, guys that don't want to get extreme and just more of a cleaner look. If they would have just did the classic first, there would be no men's physique because it's
Yeah,
still bodybuilding, still has posing. They went so to the other extreme where there was no posing and you
yeah.
didn't show your legs. They went way too extreme, and then they rethought it to have the classic division because the men's physique was progressing so much in their physiques. They're like, man, we need something in the middle now. If they would have just judged the men's physique way over here, like they did, like a beach body, then they wouldn't have ever seen that there was a need for the classic.
Oh, okay.
But basically, the men's physique was drifting into the classics as far as what the judges were picking to win.
Mm, I see what you're saying.
So that's why at a certain point it's drifted so close to the classic division that now they're making the height weight ratio just like the classic. That's how close it's come to the classic division.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let me close my door real quick over here.
Okay.
You there?
Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
So back to your training though. What and do you still train this instinctive way? Like did you always train that
Do I
way?
what?
The instinctive training, did you always train that way? Do you still train that way?
Yeah, I train that way even more so now. Now that in a few reasons is before I was not traveling as much, so it was easier to have kind of consistent training partners that I could kind of depend on as far as what they were training on what days. But since I travel and move around so much, um, I literally have like 13 gym memberships, different gym memberships.
Wow. That's
I know
crazy.
it sounds crazy, but um, I moved to Vegas also, and I'm also in LA, so that's a whole nother area. Um, and I'm trying to get this phone right, but
Yeah, it's tough sometimes, yeah.
but Vegas has really been like a hotbed for the fitness industry lately.
Yeah.
Everybody's moving there, and everybody's opening. There literally is a new gym opening up every few months.
Wow.
And since I've moved there, because my wife's a musician, she performs out there a lot, and I train a lot of celebrities on the movie sets, on the studios in LA. Um, but I've been spending a lot more time the last 4 months in Vegas. I'm not coming back down as much because they have the writers and the actors strike.
Mm.
So the studios are all closed.
Oh, so that's just not even happening.
Now they're talking about the strike might go on till January.
Wow.
And yeah, it's pretty crazy, bro, because of the streaming and the AI.
Mm.
And that wasn't on the original contracts with the studios, with a lot of the agencies and the talent. So they're trying to change that, but the studio's like, no, we signed a contract. We don't need to give up any of this money. And they're literally are just robbing everybody because the streaming, none of the actors are getting paid for that. There's no residual. It's a whole. It's like movies are not selling as many tickets in the theaters or DVDs. When's the last time you freaking watched a DVD in like a Red Box or something?
Times
That's where
change,
they
man.
used. That's where they used to make their money. So
Yeah.
everything is streaming now. And
Yeah.
can you imagine not being paid for streaming on residual? You know.
Yeah, that's not
So
right.
now they're talking about they're gonna scan you, an actor, the talent, and get your voice because and basically put you in the background and as extras, and they'll never need to use you again.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's possible already now.
Wow.
It's nuts, dude. So and it's done so well that you can't tell, you know. Because before it was like, you can kind of still tell when they try to superimpose, the faces and stuff. Like
Yeah.
a few years back, they did a Terminator and they had Arnold. They used Arnold's face on actually Roland Kickinger, a big guy from Austria that's a bodybuilder, pro bodybuilder that came to the States and competed. And he was big. He was actually bigger than Arnold, and they used him for one of the Terminators.
Wow, I
And
didn't
all
know
they did
that.
was he came out of the frozen thing, walking, and they superimposed Arnold's face on him.
Wow.
But you could tell if you
What
didn't know them, maybe you couldn't tell. But it was like not if they did it nowadays, you would not be able to tell at
wow.
all.
That is
Yeah.
gnarly, man. It's crazy times we're living in, with
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. C4.
Yeah,
Is
and
that
with
one
the
of your
COVID,
secrets right there?
what's that?
C4? You drink a lot of those?
I have been lately. I like the brain stuff. The beta alanine.
Those are pretty
Um,
powerful, aren't they? I mean, I hear people get pretty
well,
hyped up on those things.
it's well, they have some that have 300 caffeine. This only has
Oh,
200 caffeine. So you gotta look carefully because sometimes I made the mistake. I'm like drinking halfway, and I'm like, oh shit, 300 caffeine. So I don't drink the whole thing.
mm.
Um, but I was sponsored by Rain. I get sent bangs. A friend of mine is Jack Owak that owned Bang. They just went out of business. Monster just bought Bang.
Oh, is that what happened to him? I was wondering because I haven't seen them in the stores anymore. Yeah.
Right. Well, now you'll see them, but they won't say creatine on the top. See how it says all the ingredients on here, on like the cans,
Yeah.
on the Bangs. They used to say super creatine, and that was their patented creatine that could be um, sustained in a carbonated form. Because supposedly you can't put a certain quality creatine to mix it with carbonation because it would just fuzz up like Alka-Seltzer. But they were able
Wow.
to stabilize it. They were able to stabilize it in a carbonation form, and that's why that company just went through the roof. They killed it, and because no other energy drink had creatine in it.
Oh, that's why they blew up then. Wow.
Yeah, that was probably 90% of the contributing factor of why they blew up. And so they opened the whole new genre up because it it gave them almost a different kind of a spin on the energy drink genre. That it was more energy drinks were like truckers, people want to stay awake for work, cops, students, like Red Bull. And then they came out with the creatine, which is known for the fitness industry. And so
Yeah.
it was an energy drink, fitness energy drink. They started their own category, bro. It didn't exist until everyone else started coming into the mix. All the companies that were making pre-workouts, now they're making energy drinks, fitness energy drinks, not Red Bull or Rockstar stuff like that. So it's its own little niche, which blew up, and probably because of the surge in all the young people getting on social media posting fitness stuff. So that definitely it's a timing thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jack built $1 billion company from that product.
I have
Well,
my
get
cousin.
this.
Huh?
Well, get this. He built it just the story I just told you. But guess what? I mean, I literally used to go out of my way to look for Bang for the creatine in it. If I didn't have, it was just very convenient. If I didn't have, the creatine where I could put it in my drinks and stuff, I would just get that. They lost a class action lawsuit and they had to file bankruptcy. You know why? Because there was never any fucking creatine in it, bro.
Oh my god, dude. No way.
I felt stupid. I was like,
Wow.
damn.
Wow. What a risky move. They
Yeah,
just
you know
thought
how
they
much
would
money
never
that
get
dude
caught, I guess.
made? Yeah, I know. Well,
Wow.
his ego and just how successful he was, he really thought he had the attorneys to be able to cover it if ever hits, which he did. But you don't also at the same time get into lawsuits with Coca-Cola, and Monster,
Yeah.
and Pepsi. So you
Because they
can't
probably
be
sent
fighting
that stuff to the
battles.
lab.
Right,
Because they were
right.
trying to figure it out,
Yeah,
too.
and there was a lot of I think because Coca-Cola owns Monster. That's the
Mm.
parent company. And Monster owns Reign, which Coca-Cola owns, and distributes them all. And so they first there was a lawsuit because Monster, I guess, I mean, Bang. I think Monster owned, or Coca-Cola owned the trademark for it. That's what it was about at first. And they were in a big lawsuit, and with some proprietary. I think it was the name. I'm not sure, but it was something about that. And then they really went like fought and spent a lot of money. And Jack's whole mission was to talk shit about, you know, their company and everything. And
Wow.
you can't do that when you got skeletons in the closet, bro.
No, yeah,
You
that's
know what I'm
not
saying?
smart.
It's like make your money. If you got to kind of like kiss a little ass and just kind of bow out a little bit and just keep making that money. But he was
That's a
like,
big
man,
ego.
well, I mean, you build $1 billion in sales company like pretty much overnight, maybe 6, 7 years. And
Yeah,
you start making that kind of money, you're like, fuck it, I'll take anybody on. I
yeah.
got enough money for just as much, to challenge them with lawyers, That's what happens.
Pride comes before the fall, man.
Right.
You know?
You go into battle, you better make sure your armor is on tight and you have no weaknesses in your armor. Because
Yeah,
you go in a tough battle and eventually that'll get exposed.
yeah.
So, my friend um man, I'm so brain dead. I just started drinking this right now. I didn't have any caffeine this morning. Um what's the name? Um PJ and Aaron.
Oh yeah.
Aaron owns this. PJ owns Blackstone,
Oh, I didn't
and
know that.
Aaron owns um Redcon. Redcon makes this.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. I actually just text Aaron. I'm like, bro, your flavor profiles are really good on this product. Basically saying, send me some fucking free shit, bro.
Yeah.
Because I'm buying it. But I was being truthful because I could drink any of them. I can call up anybody and get them for free sent to me.
Yeah, my cousin, he started taking a ghost pre-workout.
Ghost is good too.
Man, I'm not kidding when I say this. He literally got into working out because of this pre-workout. Like he wasn't into working out. He didn't work out, and he started
Yeah,
taking this pre-workout, and then now he's all about working out. He sends me pictures of his physique updates all the time. Like every
right.
day he's sending me pictures, and it's crazy because I watched it and I was like, wow, that pre-workout is really amazing what it did for
Yeah,
him because it changed his
right.
whole life.
Yeah, and he could have been ready for it, but he just needed something to kind
Spark
of
him.
get in. Yeah, spark him. Like he felt like he belongs in some way. Oh, that's my drink that I drink. Oh, these other guys do it. So now I drink this drink. Maybe I should work out too, because that's what the people do that
Yeah.
drink this drink.
Yeah.
No,
It's
there's
true,
a
yeah.
total psychological effect on certain things, even the clothes you wear. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like a
So
lot of these guys dress a certain way, and they like skateboarders. Like
yeah,
there's kids that never skateboarded, but skateboarding attire is cool.
they like the
So then,
culture
okay,
of
they like the culture, and they got into it by maybe like getting some of the shorts or the shirts, and they kind of dress like a skateboarder. And all of a sudden, one day, I want to buy a skateboard because that's kind of like how people identify me. So let's start learning how to skateboard, kind of like what your friend did, you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it was amazing to see. I was like blown away by that, because I didn't think he was ever going to get real serious about it, but that was the thing that
right,
did it, because he would just
oh,
want to
that's
take
good.
that and then go to the gym.
Yeah.
But so your workout routine, is it impossible to say what it was like because it was changing so much? Like it just constantly changed?
Um. Well, no, you still have to. When I first started, I stuck with the basics foundation. Always squats, a little bit of deadlifts, not too hard on those. Um. Uh. Incline bench. I was never, for some reason, I felt that instinctively flat bench on the bar was not the best thing for your shoulders, and it's proven. Everyone that usually tears their chest, it's on a flat bench.
Hmm.
Um. Dumbbells is way better. So I used to do incline bench, dumbbells, rows for the back, and the pull downs, just the basic stuff to build that foundation. And then you get more into, little angles and specific machines and range of motion, you know, but the basics is always there. Just squats, hamstring leg curls, you know, dumbbell, chest or bench, and rows and pull downs. That's it. Maybe some laterals for shoulders or some upright, dumbbell presses, seated for your shoulders. It's not complicated.
The
And then you
basics.
just kind of, yeah, and then you just see how your body grows. Um, and you can just keep doing the same movements and see how your body develops. And then you start seeing, wow, maybe I need to concentrate on my rear delts because everything's growing so much and I'm not hitting specifically the rear delts enough to isolate it. And then you start doing that. Now you're starting to get into out of just the the foundation, the fundamentals. Then you start getting into like specific sculpting and getting more, I guess you could say, instinctive training, but training to be complete because it all ties in together. Your back, you train your back. A lot of times, or your chest, and a lot of times, especially when we're not eating real clean or doing any cardio, your rear delts kind of get blended in with your back. It just kind of looks like that. So you want like that nice crisp like definition all the way around. So you have that canyon ball look. Um, is to really do isolation movements for your rear delts. The mid delt. Um, just different things depending on what your body needs. Some people, their bicep head attaches really low, like Arnold's, and it goes from here all the way up. Some people have very high attachments, like sebum, you know, and so you have to try to hit it accordingly for your weak areas to kind of bring them up or hide them, so it's not as prominent, noticeable. You know, like Chris did a really great job doing that. He did an amazing job. You don't see too many. I mean, Derek Lunsford definitely came like boom. His physique just progressed at like light speed. Same thing with Sebum's back. The first couple of years, his back was definitely not up to par with the rest of him. But man, literally in 1 year, because he knew he was going to have to get that up, because mine and Breon's back and a lot of other athletes' backs were really getting like noticeable, like shit. They got some like George Peterson's back was pretty sick, you know, and so he knew that was going to be the area that was going to expose him. If he ever wanted to win, he needed to bring that back up. Literally in 1 year, he brought that back up like dominant. I was like, wow. If anything, Breon looked the same, which he looked great from winning the Olympia 2 times already, but he didn't change much. Sebum in 1 year came that next year and brought his back up. Like, where the fuck did this come from?
Yeah.
And so, all things given, they see someone that looks the same, which is good enough for him to win before, and it probably was just as good. But then you got another guy that just took second, but he came up the next year and made this kind of improvements. You're going to get rewarded, you know? So,
That's what did it all. That's what put him over.
yeah. Oh, for sure. Without a doubt. I mean, he'll even tell you that because it's not really anything else that's that like level change. His quads were good. His conditioning was always good. He tried to bring his arms up a little bit. I don't know what he was doing. They look a little bit fuller, but it's still that high attachment. Um, but yeah, his back, boy, I have to say it's. I still look at it every once in a while and say, "Well, is it really that good?" We're always critiquing each other, and then he'll hit it, and sometimes I'm like, it could use a little more fullness and detail. But how he brought it up, and the at the speed and the level he brought it up, if he keeps progressing in that way, nobody's gonna touch him. I mean, I was backstage doing the live commentary, me and Phil Heath backstage for the Olympia this last year. And so we were critiquing everyone. And so when Chris won, he came backstage and I was talking to him and took pictures with him. I was like, bro, to be honest, nobody was close to you this year. They talk about that Ronaldinho or whatever his name is, Rolando or
Ramon Dino.
Ramon. I'm sorry, Ramon. Yeah, and he looked great, but he's still not put together like Chris is, especially that back. And I was just like, and the conditioning. I was like, dude, you could just win this for quite a while. I don't really see, unless, some other guys come up like he did with improvements. I just don't really see him losing anytime soon. We're just talking about, it really comes down to if he still wants to do it, there's nothing really more to prove, and his health. Those were the two factors. If he still has the desire to really go after it, to him improve his physique. Because I was saying, it's not to win how many trophies. Because at a certain point, nobody cares how many. You know, I mean, with mine, since it was the first, that's a little bit different. Because you
Yeah.
always kind of remember that one. But whether Breon won 2 or 3 or whatever, Chris won 4 or 6, not that big of a difference. It's got to be your health comes first, or you're doing it because you still feel you could be better. Like your physique could still improve. So when they put your picture up when you've retired, and you still think that, looking back, saying, "Man, even though I won the Olympia, that picture, I know I could have did better. My physique, I think my potential, and if I would have kept going, I could have looked better." And I think that's where he's at. I think he feels like he can still make improvement, and that's always been the goal for me because I've been competing so long. I still feel like I could be better, and that's not to say that I could beat the other guys now. That's not what it's about for me because I already got one of those things. It's about I think I can actually be better than when I won. And in
Wow.
certain areas, I think I've already done that. I'd like to bring up my hamstrings, the upper chest, the shoulders, my arms, and that's what I'm in picturing. And my body's still responding and I'm still healthy. And so that's what's always in the back of my mind to keep in striking distance, even though I have been competing the last couple of years, keeping that striking distance. So when I do make the commitment to really go for it, I won't be in the hole. I'll be ready to kind of go, you know, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors involved in competing. Is not just, it's got to be physically, it's got to be mental, and it's also got to be what's going on in your life. Because if you got the mental and the physical to go for it and you're healthy, um, but you got so much shit going on in your life, a new job or no job, you know, or just relationships or whatever's going on, that's really going to make it hard for you to go for it. I probably wouldn't go for it because you're just going to do, like I say, like a car with miles on it. You're just going to put miles on your car when you know the ducks aren't really lined up for you to really go for it, where you have a good chance, a fighting chance to be your best, you know?
Yeah.
Because the worst thing is to go full force and then shit is always popping up all the time, like in your way, uh, outside of your mental and physical abilities. That's what happened to Victor Martinez. Do you know Victor Martinez?
Yeah, he's the guy that he went to jail or something, right? When he was like almost won the Mr. Olympia.
Victor, yeah, Victor, I think
Should have won.
probably should have won. He should have been Mr. Olympia.
That's what Ronnie
Um,
Coleman said, actually. He thought he should have won
yeah,
too.
he's so complete, such a pretty physique. And then after that, he just had bad luck after bad luck in his life. His sister was murdered before the Olympia.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
just crazy stories. Yeah,
That's hor-
that's a crazy story, man. When he told me that, I was like, oh man, yeah, she was murdered, missing for days, and then they found her at the office where she worked, hidden in the ceiling. A
oh my
coworker killed
God.
her. Yeah, a coworker killed her. Some guy,
That's horrible, man.
and he
That's
finds out like right before the Olympia.
oh
Yeah,
dude.
just crazy, crazy stuff. And mentally definitely affects physically, you know. So not only did you not get to win as far as it affecting you, but it probably had a lot of residual effects on his physique and his training, you know.
Definitely. How could you stay focused with that
Right.
happening? I don't know how you could.
Just like Sean Roden.
Mm,
Sean won the
yeah,
Olympia. Sean
and then,
probably literally could have won another one, you know, but
but
then all
all
those
that stuff,
allegations came out with him, and the
stress.
IFBB didn't let him compete, and then COVID. I mean, it's just like it's just his health started deteriorating. There's a lot of subconscious things was probably giving him ulcers and a lot of issues with his health. And at that level, when you're taking gear and you're trying to put on that much size, boy, that's like a risk, a really high risk factor, especially with the COVID going around. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, to be
dude,
Mr. Olympia, I mean, that's an extreme thing. How much of it for
right?
you? Because I listened to the podcast with Monica. Is it Monica Brandt? Uh,
Uh huh.
I listened to that podcast, and your wife was on there and everything. And
Oh,
your
cool.
wife's like super all about God. Is that for
Yeah.
you a big part of it for you too, the spiritual side of it? And like, do you feel like that, like with what you do and the decisions you make, or the direction you're going in, or
I think I've
even
changed a
training?
lot. I've changed my, I've changed a lot. Um, and my wife's changed a lot since we met. We were different, but the same in a lot of ways. Um, she came from she's Italian, so she grew up Catholic, and then her dad
Oh,
was Protestant, her mom was Catholic, and she went through the whole church thing, and she actually left the church for a while, you know. And one of the things that kind of kept her in is because she has an amazing voice. I mean, it's very angelic. She could sing anything, just beautiful. The tone, the pitch, and just the passion that comes from it, um, kind of kept her. She felt it was a gift, which it is, and she wanted to, lead worship in churches. She found ministering to women, to empower women and stuff like that was kind of her calling. And her voice was one of the things, the gift that she had to do that with. So that's one of the reasons she's still stuck with the church, because a lot of the stuff with the church, at least where she was at, um, she just felt it was about money, it was
yeah,
about gossip, just all the negative things that comes with like going to big super churches, where she's
yeah.
from, because she came from money growing up too.
Mm.
And a lot of the people in that area went to these big churches. I remember when I first met her, and I went to the church she went to, where she's from with her family.
Yeah, you're
I
like,
I
what is?
literally, bro, I never seen so many Lambos and Bentleys
Wow,
in the church parking lot in my life. It
wow.
was a big church, and it was out in Newport area, right? Newport Beach, California, which is like the Beverly Hills of beaches. Um,
So the richest
and
place in the country, basically.
right,
Yeah,
and I went there, and the father, he's very successful builder. He'd build like 400 homes at one time, you know, before the crash, and and so he was telling me this is a really good place to network. Of course, they go, you know, for the service and stuff like that. They had really good messages. The minute the preacher there, the pastor, was good, but everything else was very like networking. You
yeah.
know, people with money and businesses, they would go there
Social,
to
social
network.
thing.
Right, right. And so that really turned her off to a lot of stuff. And for me too, because I didn't grow up in the hood, but I kind of did to a certain degree. Sports kind of kept me out of that environment. Um, and so I've just seen like churches where poor people go, maybe sometimes homeless people, you know, people, minorities, immigrants, stuff like that. I went to that church and there was none of that.
Yeah, there's no.
I was like, wow, you know, I guess homeless people aren't welcome here if they want to come in and sit down and listen to you. It was like, not only not the homeless, but like if I wasn't dressed like pretty decent, be like, wow. those tennis shoes are pretty wore out. Maybe you should wear some nicer shoes to go here.
Wow, that's
Type of mentality, you know?
that's not
So,
how the apostles were. I'm
oh
sure.
yeah, exactly. But hey, welcome to the modern age.
Yeah,
Um, Apostles probably weren't on their cell phones all the time too, texting business and everything while they're in
no,
service,
they
you
were
know.
focused. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so that's where she came from, and she left it for a while, but she kind of stayed in because of the music part of it and blessing people with her gift. And I came into it because I grew up. My father was Baptist. He worked for the CIA, part Native American. Grew up in Oklahoma, from Oklahoma, and met my mom during the Vietnam War. He worked for the CIA, and my mom's Thai from Thailand. So a lot of people don't really know what ethnicity I am, and I think I pass for so many different things depending on you know where I am. So I grew up. My father was Baptist. He died in the service of our country, and so my mom raised all six kids. Luckily, he did very well in real estate and properties here um, in California, and so my mom raised all of us. She never remarried, and we all got into sports and positive things to keep us out of trouble. And so um, she was Thai, so she grew up Buddhist. And but out of my father passed away when we were young. Out of respect for my father, she would send us to Sunday school on a bus every Sunday,
Wow,
right?
that's amazing.
Yeah. And so we come back from church, and my mom would be, meditating to incense. And even though it was a little bit belief system, she was very open. And true Buddhism is not a religion. It is to a certain degree now, but true Buddhism is more of a philosophy of life. It's more
Mhm.
in line with physics, like energy always transfers. They
Yeah,
believe in the effect of doing one thing affects everything else, and it's like a pebble dropping into a pond. It just doesn't affect that little area, but it affects everything else, and everything we do. And it's not necessarily karma. Karma is like you do something bad and it's going to come back to you. No, it'll affect everybody. Of every little decision you make will affect everything, and it could come back bad or good. But if you keep putting out and everybody keeps putting out bad, well, guess what? That's negative energy, more negative energy going out, you know? So, in a way, we have to do our own little part in creating that positive energy going out there. And so that was kind of always my philosophy because my mom would teach us how to meditate when we came back from church. And it wasn't from a religious standpoint, it was more for kind of just centering yourself. And so I got a combination of Buddhism and Christian based upbringing, which I feel is probably more in line with Jesus, to be honest with you. Because traditional Christianity to me is missing a lot of that aspect that I believe true Christianity is supposed to be. So um, when I met her, she was still kind of like, still had kind of like a Catholic mindset of, you know, condemnation and you sin and you have guilt and this and that. Where I was coming from, not trying to sin because of just the effect it has on everything else, not necessarily just for the selfish reason of I'm not going to go to heaven or whatever, you know. And
oh,
so, right, but she had the structure and just, you know, we kind of chilled each other out in certain ways. I might have been a little bit too relaxed, too hippie-ish, you know, where she was very structured but a little bit more uptight. So we were able to kind of mesh and kind of change each other for the better. That's where I think, like they say, opposites attract. They attract because then they could merge and kind of make the better of each half. And so that's probably why, we really enriched each other's lives with that. And with my training, I think I just knew kind of with her influence that I couldn't take my genetics for granted because time is very, finite, and you kind of have to someday it might not be there. I might wake up and go, man, my legs are just not growing, or my knees can't handle this anymore, you know. But as at this point, everything is still responds really well. If there's a lagging part, it's because I didn't put a lot of effort into it. It's not because it's not growing, which is still a blessing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of motivates me, because I know how much I'm lucky to be doing what I'm doing and still responding at this point. And it's like, even if I'm not competing, I just told myself the other day, I'm like, I keep putting it on the back burners of kind of stepping it up a little bit, and people know I'm not competing, and I still look good, you know. But I'm thinking, for the last couple of years, I look good, better than the average person. But I know just with a little bit more discipline, I could look really good. So why am I being complacent and looking good when I could look really good without any detriment to my health? Is just using a little more discipline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like going around, because I feel like your physique is a representation of yourself. So why am I representing myself kind of being mediocre when I know I could be like, every day people ask me, "Are you getting ready for something?" Because they used to ask me all the time, and I wasn't. But you start getting complacent, and you're like, "Yeah, I don't have to do cardio today. I could do a little shittier," and then you get a little bit more complacent with it, and pretty soon you still look good to the normal person. But at my level of where I'm supposed to be representing myself and also the other athletes that I'm around all the time, even though I know they know my potential, like, don't think you're the shit, because when I get in shape, bro, you don't even stand next to me. You know what I mean? That was kind of my mentality, and I knew they knew that. So I didn't feel like I had to kind of prove myself. But at the same time, it's like, why are you letting yourself not be the best you can be?
Mm.
You know? So now I want to kind of get back into it, even if I'm not going to compete. Okay, why are you going to start doing cardio in the morning now and this and that, and be a little bit more disciplined, go to bed a little bit earlier, just that stuff, even if you're not going to compete. It's like, because in a way, this is the time I'm giving to look really good. When I get old and I can't look good anymore, you know, I don't want to look back and go, man, I could have, for those last few years, I could have looked fucking awesome, even if I didn't compete. Why would I want to not walk around looking like that to make more of an impact on people? You know,
Yeah,
it's like a
like
lot of
kind of like
people wait.
honoring your potential.
Right, right. It's
Like,
almost disrespecting my potential
mhm,
when it's just a
yeah,
little bit. Just that, where a lot of people have to take all kinds of drugs and really get down and discipline to even look half the way I look. You know, but
yeah,
plus
because
I
you
have a
have,
lot of years. I have a lot of years into it too. So it's like all
mhm,
those years I put into it to be able to turn that dial and really look great. I'm kind of wasting that. You know,
yeah.
so
That's a really positive reason to do it, I think, because
always,
sometimes you could be like, why am I doing this anyways, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure people get lost in that where they're like, what am I doing? Killing
yeah,
myself and, you know, trying to
right,
pursue this thing, and it's really hard. I mean, there's a guy in my gym, he just tried to go pro in bodybuilding and he went to I don't know what it is, nationals or whatever, and he got 11th
yeah,
place, but this guy, like, I know him and he kills himself. I mean, he starves himself and he eats so strict, you know what I mean? And it's like to get 11th
right,
place and you're
right,
not getting no money or anything and but he loves it. I mean, he loves it. That's what he wants to do, but it's also like, dang, man, I don't know if I would do that. Like that's
right.
hard, dude. That's
But
super hardcore.
everybody's, it could be hard, but that's maybe what he needs.
Mm.
Because some people go hard at the nightclubs too, bro. You
That's
know,
true. That's a
especially
great
being in
point, man.
Vegas.
You got some really good points, man. Like it's great to hear that. Like some people go hard at the nightclubs. You're right. You're right. There's a lot of people doing
So
that.
I know.
And
It's
that's
amazing what the
bad.
human body can withstand.
It's way better to be bodybuilding and trying to turn pro
Yeah.
than going to the club and
Right.
getting drunk and whatever.
Right. Right.
Wow.
Because there's people are people do things for a reason for themselves. You know, and he might think turning pro. is almost his excuse to have to put himself through that because he needs that.
Mm.
So it's not necessarily because if he was doing what you say and you think, fuck, this dude's kind of crazy, and even though I admire him, I could never do that. Let's say he wasn't even training for a show. Then you think he's weird, right?
Yeah.
For that level.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so maybe he just has to choose a show that's kind of hard to obtain that might take a long time because then it gives him an excuse where he can just do this.
Wow. That's
Does that make
crazy.
sense?
Yeah, because then it makes sense what he's doing. Like, yeah, this is the
Right,
reason why I'm living
right,
this crazy lifestyle of, to the point where, I mean, it just like my perspective is more like I think it's great to get in your best shape. I think that's great. And that's kind of like what my motivations would be to compete or something. But like to take it to that level, it becomes not fun. It's like, dude, that is
right.
not fun to live the way you're living. Like you're
Yeah,
so crazy about this.
right.
Like you're carrying your 10 Tupperwares everywhere you go and you don't ever eat anything except plain chicken and rice and whatever, you know what I mean? And you're
Yeah,
so focused on your shredded glutes. You know what I mean? Like to
yeah.
me, I've never looked at mine personally.
Right,
I never
right.
thought about having shredded glutes before because that's just a little too
Yeah,
extreme for me. I'm not
yeah.
that lean of a guy, but uh,
Right.
it's pretty crazy, really. Like when you take a step away from bodybuilding, right? Like I remember listening to Dave Palumbo's show one time, and I was like, dude, these guys have talked about shredded glutes for an hour. Like who does that? You know what I mean? Who does that? Like
I
normal
know.
people don't do that. this is
No.
this is crazy.
Right.
The sport is it's a pretty crazy thing, and when you get sucked into it real in
Yeah,
deep, you become
I know.
disconnected from normal people,
Right.
I think.
Well,
You
see
know,
that's the beauty of me getting into the sport and doing so well early, and then getting out of the sport, and then getting back in the sport.
different
So I
perspective.
totally, totally. So I can kind of blend in and out, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
It and me not competing or talking about retirement or whatever. People, are you retired? And this, that. I'll never say I'm retired because I keep that door open. I just did a seminar at a Fit Expo with Ronnie Coleman sitting to the left of me and Phil Heath sitting to the right of me, and then Chris Cormier, and then Breon. I mean, tell me if that panel wasn't amazing. And then
yeah,
Oksana, four-time fitness Olympia, and it was just talking about retirement. Phil talking about retiring. Uh, uh, Ronnie, and I looked at Ronnie. I was talking to the audience, and I looked at Ronnie. And I said, that this is just a chapter of our life. Fitness will always be there, and we've made such an impact. We've hit the highest level where we can give back to it, but that's not over with. I said, that's just one chapter of our lives. To do and achieve what we've achieved, that means we have something in us that wants to go to a certain caliber that we hold ourselves to, that we know. Because once you achieve something, it's really interesting. Your mind kind of changes. You're thinking anything is possible.
mm,
It's a beautiful thing. Um, and it's hard
positive.
when you haven't achieved that. I would. Who would have ever thought I would win the Olympia in the classic division? I mean, Bumstead's got like 17 million followers. I could tell people, hey, he's got my title right now. At
That's
that level.
crazy.
And so you start thinking like, I've been on cover of magazines and stuff. So you're like, shoot, anything is really possible. Because half of what holds us back is that doubt. It's the what they call the imposter syndrome,
Oh
where
yeah,
you think, yeah, I could really never do it. So why am I acting like I can actually do this? You know? And sometimes when people actually achieve it, they still have that feeling, which I did too. I was like,
really.
shoot, yeah. People would say, oh yeah, he's Mr. Olympia, the classic division. And I'd kind of like be a little sheepish about it, like, man, maybe I didn't deserve it, or I got in a lucky year, or blah blah blah. I'd make all the excuses to kind of disqualify myself or to even belittle the title because I thought that it's not as prestigious. I couldn't really reach that, you
The
know?
best in the world. Yeah, the very best. Yeah.
Right. And then as time goes on, I started owning it and ownership of it. I even started taking my medal, my gold medal, instead of putting it in the glass case on the wall. Like I've been to Jay's house and Dexter's and all these people that have Arnold's, Jay's, on their wall of all the Olympia medals. And I was gonna put it in there, and I told my office, I'm like, you know what? Before I put it in there, I want to take it to this next expo, um, Arnold Schwarzenegger expo, with me. And I did. And I brought it to the booth, and I started showing people, and I let them wear it and take pictures with it. And you should see the look on their faces going, wow, this is the actual. Because I never held one. I've only seen it until I won one. I actually got to hold it, and I was like, man, this thing's heavy.
That's
And I
cool,
brought
man.
it with me, and little girls were wearing it and hitting poses. And I want to win the Mr. Olympia. Some little girls at the expo, probably like 10 years old. I'm like, well, shoot, yeah, you could do it. Anybody could do it. It's tangible, and that was like a big hit. Then people would ask me, like promoters would ask me, they'd hire me for guest posing and stuff, and they're like, hey, you still bringing the Olympia medal around, or did you put it up and framed it already? I said, no, I could bring it. I'll bring it. And like, oh, that'd be awesome. And I'd bring it backstage when I'm guest posing, and all the other athletes are lined up backstage, pumping up and stuff. And I'll bring it, and I'll let them hold it. Some of them didn't want to hold it. Oh no, I don't deserve that yet, man. You know. And I said, nah, bro. And like, well, I'm gonna get pro tan. I said, don't worry about it. I can always buy new ribbons. So I let them put it on, and it's just amazing to see them light up and to see them just kind of in awe of it, you know. And it just shows them it's tangible. Anyone can do it. So, and for me, it was like, so I finally started owning the title, and and it's like once you achieve that, like I turned around to Ronnie at that expo on the panel, and I said, this is not it for us. Shoot, Ronnie can decide he wants to run for senator and be a senator one day. That's not out of the question, especially these days. The bar's not that high, right?
Everybody loves
So,
Ronnie.
right, or Phil. I said Phil can start acting. Who knows? Maybe he's the next Rock. Because I guarantee you, if you would have said 20 years ago that The Rock would be the biggest celebrity as far as grossing action dude in the world, people were going, dude, he can't even fucking act. Really? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
He was a pro
So
wrestler, I think, right? Like, yeah.
he was a pro wrestler. His production company is called $7. You know that, right?
I did not know that, no.
Yeah. The Rock's Dwayne's production company is called $7. That's the name of it. And he called it $7 because there was a time in his life when all he had in his bank account in the ATM was $7.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I know. He literally had to get a mattress from what are those called? Goodwill to sleep on.
Wow. He was
Yeah, so
broke.
bad.
And
Yeah,
now he's like rich beyond rich.
right.
He's got
He's
20
like
Lambos.
anything he touches, at a certain level, it's like you come out with your own energy drink, which he did. You come out with your own tequila, which he did. It's making money. So it's like, money creates money. And he's got the platform to do it. What's he got, like 200 million followers on Instagram? Maybe more
I
now.
remember the first time I saw him do that thing where he was in pro wrestling and he goes up to some random person in the audience and he's
Mhm.
like, "What's your name?" Like he goes up to him like, "Oh, who are you?" And he's like gets the microphone. He goes, "What's your name?" And they start to say their name and he'd go, "It doesn't matter what your name is." And I thought that was
That's
so
funny.
funny, man. I was like, "That's so hilarious how he just
Yeah,
destroys people." Like
I
just
know.
the most arrogant thing, but it was like
Right.
so entertaining. I mean,
Yeah.
so
It took him
great.
3 times, though. It took him 3 times. He had 3 different names, wrestling names.
Oh, I
He had to
didn't know
find what
that.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had to find what stuck.
He had to find his character, and it's a tough business, man, to be in. That's a
Yeah.
rough
And I
life.
think I think he got a lot more chances because his father and his whole family were in the business.
Yeah. Yeah,
His father was a pro wrestler,
yeah. Yeah,
and
he made
that's where
it
he
in there.
got. Yeah, he got his name from his dad because his dad was Rocky,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Rocky
so he
Johnson.
used The Rock.
Oh yeah.
and then that kind of hit. But that's the thing is so anything is possible. You just got to do it, put the work in, study it. You know, I'm thinking about politics myself too.
Really? One thing that I noticed about you, talking to you and actually watching all your interviews, that seems very unusual to like a fitness personality or what you would think is you have a very like calm demeanor about you. Like you just seem like a very calm, peaceful
Yeah,
guy.
I don't even smoke weed either, bro. Can you believe
What
that?
is that from? Why are you like that?
Can you imagine if I smoke weed? How much like I'd be like, yeah, bro. I'm like, yeah, that's not my thing. I need energy stuff. Uh, I don't know. I've always tried to stay quiet as long as possible. Um, and I always try to prove myself over time. That's kind of always been my thing. Like I almost like staying an underdog because
Wow.
it drives me more,
So you're
you
just very
know,
patient.
to a certain degree. Yeah, sometimes maybe too patient where I need to step it up a little sooner,
Like you're talking
you know.
about getting in your best shape right now.
Right, right. So, and that's the thing is even when I was younger, even dealing with bullies, I'd see other kids getting bullied, and I wasn't a big guy, but I was an incredible athlete. I was very fast and very strong for my size. So I knew my athleticism can get me out of a lot of things and get me the attention. So I didn't need to try to be a bully or a class clown. It was about my athleticism. You know, I literally, when I go to a new school or something, I'd get picked last in sports. And I was like, awesome. I said, let me get picked last. No problem. And then all
The
of a
ringers
sudden,
here.
it's like I'm dominating. I love that feeling, rather than people knowing that I was really good. Because in a way, I can under promise and over deliver
Oh, what a
rather than
great place to
having the
be in.
promise, right? Rather than having the expectations put on you
Mm.
and not living up to it. So in a way, maybe it's me compensating, you know, because I
Wow.
don't I don't want to have that pressure. And where it was really true, where I felt it is after I won. Literally, I did not like that pressure. It was like, especially winning. I won at 47, bro. You know,
Wow, really?
and,
I didn't know
and
that.
yeah,
That's
yeah. That
amazing.
I had already retired for years. As far as competing. I was doing more MMA, training a lot of fighters, boxers, world champions, and staying very athletic because my athleticism I had to express it in a certain way, and train a lot of all the action guys, Van Damme, Mickey Rourke, Charlie Sheen, all these guys, um, in the movie business, and I had to look the part, and I can also move. If I would have like been a bodybuilder and muscle bound, I probably wouldn't have got hired as much, you know, because it impressed them that I could still like move the way I did and in being in really good shape.
Yeah,
So,
I saw you hitting the bag, and I mean, you're
uh,
super fast. Did you
yeah,
do that your whole life, or is that just your athleticism? How fast
both, both. Yeah, I
you
mean, just where
trained?
I grew up.
You trained
Yeah,
in
I'm
Muay
half
Thai.
I'm half Thai, so I was doing Muay Thai since I was young. I wrestled in college, did martial arts, um, just kind of fighting all the time. Like I was saying, like even with the bullies, I'd see like kids getting bullied, and I don't. I just kind of sit back, and it's almost like I'm waiting for them to come bully me.
Oh yeah, that's
It's like I was like, yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be my turn pretty soon. And it's like, what's that term? Uh, fuck around and find out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just
That
stay
was kind of like
quiet
my
and
thing. Right. I would never go looking for it, but if it came to me, I definitely would let them have it. And I was always getting pulled off of the bigger guys by the by the by the teachers. And so for me, I've always kind of liked working in that way. But I also was in law enforcement before, and I'm also a registered nurse too.
Oh, I didn't know you
And
did law enforcement. Yeah.
yeah, I was correction officer, maximum security prison,
Oh, wow. That's
and
probably seen some things then.
I grew up very fast, and I was very young at the time too.
Some
And
dark stuff. Huh?
one of the reasons I quit is because I felt like I didn't have enough life experience,
Mm,
and I felt like I was going to be the good kid that all the older correction officers would try to always groom me as far as like mentor me. And then I started realizing these guys are a bunch of fucking losers, you know?
really?
And I'm thinking I'm way younger than them. I'm seeing all the mistakes they make and everything. But out of respect for being so much younger and they've been in positions they've been in for so long, I kind of give them the respect, a lot
Mm,
more respect than I should. And looking back, I regretted that. And I'm glad I quit because that's how a lot of these police officers with good intentions come in, but they're coming into a culture that's very negative and probably not ethical, but that's
wow.
kind of the culture. And they're young and they want to fit in, but they know that this is not really what I should be doing. But they're so inexperienced and they're kind of getting mentored. So they think, okay, well, I guess this is kind of how it goes. Maybe when I get to a certain position of seniority, I can do things my way. But guess what? Doing that over and over again, you don't end up doing it your way. That becomes your way. So you have to be
You
very
just
careful.
become very complacent, and it's like not being in your best shape, like you're talking about. You're just like
Yeah,
out of
right,
shape, and then you're thinking, at this point, I'll get in shape, but by then you're too used to it and set in your ways of being lazy or something, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
How long did you
so
do that for?
that's like 4 years.
Wow.
So that's the reason
It's a
I
long
quit.
time.
Yeah. So I quit because I felt I didn't have enough life experience, you know.
And
And
then, so did you go to school to become a nurse at that same
uh-huh,
time? That's when you went to
before.
school?
Yeah, a little bit before. And I was a nurse and that's how I found out about corrections because I worked for the state at a mental hospital as a nurse.
At a
And
mental hospital. So you've seen some
yeah,
crazy stuff there too, probably.
literally, yeah, crazy stuff.
Really crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, sad stuff. And that was when there was a lot of funding, state and federally, for mental health. And you know where all these homeless people come from? They cut the financing for that. The
Dude, I
war,
know. Yeah.
the war on drugs was the worst thing to ever happen because all the resources that it took to have that war on drugs, they cut a lot of um, funding for mental health.
Mm,
It was almost like mental health is what causes or lack of mental health um, and resources to help people with mental health issues. They're going to cut the funding for that. They're going to put it on anti-drugs, all the resources to fight drugs, right? Well, guess what? Who are the people that are going to most likely take the drugs? The people with mental health issues because they have to medicate themselves because they don't know how to deal with life. So you're letting all these people not funded, so they're going to go out in the streets, no therapy, with all the money fighting drugs. So now you just created this huge demographics of people that are going to use the drugs. So it was almost like now all these DEA and people that are fighting drugs in law enforcement are having all this job security. It was such a the craziest thing in the world. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
You created this fucking demand for this is what you're fighting. So of course this demand is going to grow because these people are the ones using it. So you have all the job security of stopping these people from getting the drugs, right? And putting in all these people in jail that should be having mental health um, experts in a hospital setting or even a rehab or recovery outpatient program. So they have somewhere to go when they're in the streets to renew their medications to get the counseling. But there's none of that anymore. So they just fucking go out in the streets and fend for themselves and they try to self medicate and buy drugs to deal with it. So you have this
Damn.
huge demand. It's a joke, and I've been in both areas of law enforcement and mental illness, And they just, I don't, and that's the problem with the government, as far as these people in charge of making the laws have no fucking life experience, have no clue of what's going on
They're so
and how to deal with it.
disconnected.
They
Yeah.
say vote for me because I'm gonna fight the war on drugs. I'm gonna help fight crime. I'm gonna help get rid of homelessness. Do you even know where it comes from? Do you even know the history of it, the true history of it, and what the effect of everything? Like I say, one thing affects another thing. They just have all this diarrhea of the mouth saying they could do this. Well, how are you going to do it? And back in the day, even Biden, whether you're Republican or Democrat, Republicans war on drugs. Biden, when he was in office as senator, Democrats agreed to the three strikes law and to really keep the incarceration even more like strict,
Mhm.
give them more time in prison for these crimes. It's like, what are you doing?
I see that all
You're
the
good.
time where people point out that Biden, he said, if you have this much crack cocaine, you're going to go to prison for 5 years. And people point out that his son, his son had
Right,
that, and it's like, what about that, man? It's a,
right. The irony in it, right.
yeah,
And that's usually the case because his
hypocrite.
son is probably to a certain degree that way because he doesn't understand the effects and everything. If they would have not did that and incarcerated people and put all that money into therapy and consulting and just put the budget into the mental health, you could have avoided that whole prison system and the drug issue. You know,
Yeah.
because dude, sugar's a drug, alcohol's a drug. We tried banning alcohol. Look, that didn't turn out well.
Yeah. That
Prohibition.
ain't going to
All it did
happen.
was create more gangsters. Why do you think the cartel is so strong? Because the stronger we get on the war on drugs, it makes the price of drugs go up.
And they get
Cartels make
richer,
more money.
more motivation. Yeah.
It's
People
like
aren't going
at
to
a
stop
certain
using
point,
drugs.
yeah. And if you want to use drugs, use drugs. I can get any drug I want right now. It's not a
Easy.
problem.
Yeah.
Anyone could. But do we do it? I don't do it because it's against the law necessarily. I do it because it's not the best thing for you.
You don't want to be talking to the walls and yeah. I mean, you see that, right? Like the crazy homeless people talking to the air. It's like, dude, what's going on? What's happening to people? I see that a lot
Right.
up here in Oregon.
Oh, you should see LA. LA, it's like ridiculous. All the money they're spending on the housing, spend it on mental health funding,
Mental
not
health.
housing. It's like teach them to fish, heal them, or else they're going to need band-aids forever. You know, it's
How
just
important is the
it's
gym for mental health, would you say?
dude. All the bad boys of Hollywood I train, and the only thing that keeps them from being dead or in prison is fitness.
Really?
Yeah,
It's
all
the
of them.
only thing.
Yeah, a
Wow,
lot of
that's
actors,
huge.
especially acting, depending on like if you're a method actor, that means a method actor you have to be that person that you're playing.
Mhm.
Like really believe that you are that person. There's some actors I'm on the set and they'll do a scene. You can't even talk to them for at least 20 minutes after the scene because they are still in that character. If they play someone angry or this and that, like fuck, leave them alone because they'll just, it's like they have to kind of let it go. And you do that enough times, sometimes that doesn't. You need to to almost self medicate to deal with that. Why do you think a lot of these great actors OD on all the time or have drug issues?
Yeah. That one guy that played the Joker, that's who I was thinking of when you're saying that.
Yeah, a lot of them. Heath Ledger, I see it
Heath
time and time
Ledger.
and time again. So you know, so there's just so much to it. And then with the steroid thing and all that, it's just like I see some of these guys' protocol, dude, and I just going. I almost want to coach the coaches. Like I don't want to do the
One on one.
nuts and bolts of the athletes all the time. I'd rather them have a coach and then their coach hire me. Does that make
Oh, that
sense?
makes sense. Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
setting a standard kind of
Right. And there's
how to do
coaches
things.
that don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah,
but
a
they just
lot of
have
them.
more experience. They just have a little more experience than the person that they're coaching.
Yeah.
So, and they'll get better the more people they coach. But how many people do they coach that they have to give the wrong advice to before they get to that next level? It's like, you know,
Yeah, they do
so
crazy stuff, man. That one guy was killing people. Remember that Starnes guy, Kelly Starnes or whatever? He was killing people with diuretics. Like, and they said he was like
so
putting them on diuretics for like a month. He
no,
put people on,
no, yeah,
and he's just killing
right,
them, you know?
yeah. That's not. It's sad, but it's not real unusual. Hold on, let me get something out of the back.
It's crazy that people are willing to die
But
for
they don't
body.
know they're gonna die.
Yeah, they don't know they're gonna die.
It's not a reality.
They're just trusting the coach
Well,
and
they
just
and
not.
they also think this is common.
Yeah,
This is kind of like, I got to go balls to the wall. If I'm not willing to do this, then I'm not going to be a champ.
yeah, yeah, man.
You got
It's
to,
sad.
you got like my motto to a certain degree has always been: if I can't beat them, I'm going to outlast them.
Mm.
And in this sport, that's not hard to do.
You got the Dexter Jackson approach.
Yeah, yeah. I competed with Dexter back in the day. We're same era.
Wow, man. You know who I kind of felt like your physique looks a lot like? Um, it's actually I think he might have my favorite physique of all time. Is Danny Padilla. I
Oh,
think you
Danny,
had a
yeah,
I man I like his physique, man. I think he had like maybe the best ever classic physique.
yeah. For as small as he was, he definitely had a lot of muscle. He had decent symmetry. I think he didn't get enough credit, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think he should have beat Franco for the Olympia one year.
me too, man.
Yeah,
He
but
looked way better.
Franco was, yeah, he did. But Franco was, he had the name. He was Arnold's best friend. Joe Weider was, Arnold had a lot of pull with the Weeders and the judges and everything. So, a lot of it's everything in life is a little bit of politics. So I don't complain. Politics have worked against me, and politics have worked for me sometimes.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten out of shape? Like
Right now, it's probably the most out of shape I've been in.
really ever?
Yeah, yeah.
So your philosophy is don't bulk up like crazy or anything. Stay kind of
I,
close
you
to
know, I the thing is, I've tried it many different ways. I've tried to up my carbs, my calories, my fats, you name it. Try to not do any cardio. Try to lift heavier, and my body composition, weight wise, and just the way I look, it doesn't change much
Mm,
as far as improvements. Like the gains I make from doing all those things doesn't really change that much. I can stay lean and make almost the same amount of gains and look better and healthier year round. I've did that evaluation already. Does that make sense to you?
yeah, yeah.
Like
And
if you
then the
can
cut
gain
is way
10
easier.
more pounds, right? If you can gain 10 more pounds, and your circumference in certain areas are a little bit bigger, but your body fat's much higher, it's like it's not worth the trade-off. I'd rather just have a little bit less gains and be in really good shape. I've tried it. I even just went through that experiment again, saying, okay, I'm going to increase my calories. I'm going to lift a little bit heavier, and I want to see. I felt a little bit fuller. I felt a little stronger. But as far as the gains, I was like, yeah, no, let's get tighter. I would weigh myself. The difference in the weight wasn't all that much, but the way I looked, way better, way better. So I come to the conclusion my body is a time over tension factor. Kind of how Dexter, you never seen huge gains in Dexter. He just kept creeping slowly, improving, improving. One year he Jay slipped and he was right there, got the title. You know,
Yeah,
it
just
wasn't like
consistent.
it wasn't like Dexter just came out of the woodworks all of a sudden, boom, made all these gains like a lot of guys and take it. You know,
Yeah.
so that's
Were
kind
you
of
like
how.
him? Were you like him where you didn't have to do cardio and you could eat peanut butter every night?
Yeah, but I felt when I did cardio, it made me it give me more energy. It was
Mm.
almost like a detox. My skin was much better. My stress level was better, and my cardiovascular was better.
So
And it
health.
might not change physically as much, as far as leanness, but all the other factors for wellness all around was better
So
for doing
you do
cardio.
it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What about your diet? Like, how did that look like off season to contest? Like, how do you get super shredded?
I would eat more.
More.
Um, oh yeah. People think they because I'm already lean.
So in the off season, you ate less than pre contest.
Oh, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. I wasn't as disciplined. You know, when I'm
Oh,
getting
so
ready for a show, I'm training more. I'm doing more cardio, more extreme, which gets me to be more disciplined. On eat timely. It's important. High protein, a little bit of fat, lower carbs, and then spike the carbs every now and then to fill out and shoot the metabolism up. You know, um, depending on the body part and everything too that you're training that day. So you start seeing the kind of like the algorithms of your body,
yeah.
you know, and when you're in like competition mode, you really pay attention and you can see the things you eat because your metabolism and you're so efficient in what you need and what your body's craving, even when it's like greens, to eat because your body craves it. Um, and it's just amazing to see. It's a lot easier to track. Like you can see the algorithms of how your body works much better when I'm getting ready for competition because you're so disciplined and your body's so efficient with everything. The more out of shape you get, the harder it is to see those algorithms. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just lost in the out of shapeness. You don't see any
Right.
changes. You're just
Right.
out of shape.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to see what the 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 factors are that you put in because then you could tell right away. It's like a high performance car. You could tweak the carburetor just a little bit to get more oxygen. You could feel the difference, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just a lot easier to fine tune things. And I think it's a lot easier to 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 change your physique and keep an eye on what needs because there's some guys that look great, but they're not really lean and they really put some size on. But then when it comes down to competition, it's like, oh,
They
he's getting
lose
ready
it.
for a show. Yeah, it's like, shit, what happened to his arms? It's like,
Yeah.
ooh, he looked better when he was bigger. Certain body parts just disappeared. Damn, what happened to his hamstrings? So it's like, it's a lot easier to know what you're going to get. You know,
Mhm. And what you need to
it's like,
work on too, huh?
yeah, right. Well, what's going to stay? That's the thing. So a lot of these guys, they try to just keep the size on as long as possible and then really kind of shred. And then they start realizing, well, shoot, that fullness in my arms, maybe from just the extra body fat I carried in certain areas. So it wasn't true tissue in my arms or certain areas that really
Mm.
shrink up when you diet down. But if you stay diet down, you can see what areas that need to be improved on because you're going to have to get even tighter. So they're not going to get better. So you really got to start focusing on it because these are the areas that you're going to start possibly like, you know, declining in as you get ready for a show.
For physique, do you think strength is relevant at all, or did you more focus on the pump and the time under tension, like you're saying?
Right. Both.
Both.
And well, and the strength is relative. Some people are just stronger, and it's relative to the body part you're training. Because I could be super strong back, my squats could be super strong, but leg extensions, curls, or whatever different exercises are all different. You know, I know some guys that can't bench pressing, but they do some freaking dumbbell shoulder presses. I'm like, dude, you can't even do that like benching.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so every area is different.
Mm.
So it's relative as far as using what weight and how strong you are at it. I remember a long time ago I owned a gym and I had this powerlifter kid from Boston. It was always like with a chalk and lifting, you know. And he's like, oh, you bodybuilders aren't strong. I'm like, well, you're strong at that because you train those exercises every day. I said, we train certain exercises every day. So we're stronger in certain areas. He said, no, just all. I said, okay, I'll challenge you because powerlifting, you guys don't curl a lot, right? He's like, no, we don't need to curl. I said, I'll challenge you to a curl up. Dude, he couldn't even come close to the reps, the strength, um, and even the range of motion of curls that I could do. I said, so I just proved my point. I said, so when you say bodybuilders aren't strong, you should finish it and say bodybuilders aren't as strong as powerlifters in the lifts that we lift.
Yeah. Yeah. I always
That makes
thought that
sense?
about, yeah, because you see a lot of power lifters that maybe could one rep max more than Ronnie Coleman in a squat or something, but you don't see
Right,
anybody doing those rows like him or the military presses or, all those different exercises. Like he's just
right,
overall was just crazy strong.
right, right.
Front squats,
So it's
who the hell does
it's what
600-pound front squats?
it's what you train in, and also what body part, you know, because everybody their attachment has a lot to do with your strength, you know, where the attachments are because it's all about leverage, and that's why a lot of people thought, oh, shorter arms or long arms. I'm like, well, that it's all relative to where your attachments are. Because if your arms are long, but your attachments are placed lower on the other um, bone, you know, and
Yeah.
you have like a 90 degree, and then you have the tendon that's attached way up here to way up here, you're going to
Yeah.
be strong rather than it
Wow.
being
Yeah.
like attached here or here. Now all the strain is here. Is just mechanics, you know,
Yeah.
engineering.
I was reading, are you familiar with Arthur Jones?
Yeah, of course.
I was reading something where he was explaining how like gorillas, their attachments are like this. So they're just unbelievably strong. Like an 800-pound gorilla could do one arm
Right.
pull-ups all day because
Yeah.
of his attachments are just
Right.
make his leverage or whatever
Yeah.
insanely strong. Just what
Yeah.
you
It's
said,
like
basically.
it's where the attachments are also. So not necessarily how big a person is, you know. So and that's what I say. I was like, well, shorter guys can get the weight up. I'm like, well, no, because then it's all relative to how big you are. Because
Yeah.
an ant is actually stronger than an elephant. You realize
Relatively.
it,
Yeah.
right?
Way stronger. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't necessarily say because of the size, because then you're dealing with two different things, you know. And it's not necessarily the smaller is going to be stronger. It just depends on where your attachments are. You can have a short guy with attachments that aren't in the best places. He's going to be fucking weak. You can have a tall guy that has attachments like a gorilla. That dude's going to be outrageously strong. You know, so
Yeah, Larry Wheels, he must have some good attachments there.
he did.
Yeah.
He's got some detachments now. He's getting hurt all the time.
Is he? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's following like the column training method. He's always getting
Really?
hurt now. Yeah, he's already torn so many things.
Did you know
It's
he's trying to
terrible.
do classic physique now? Did you know that?
I saw that. I
Or
know.
he says it at least. That's what he
Right.
says.
I think it's better and healthier for him. He'll look better. He'll feel better.
That was his
Probably the
reasoning.
Yeah, it's a lot better than trying to arm wrestle or power lift. So, you know,
Yeah, it's the healthiest class probably, huh? Like,
um, it depends on how you go about it.
yeah, yeah.
So you could be a
Someone could be
women's
very
bikini,
unhealthy probably in
bro. You
classic
could be a
too. Huh?
woman's bikini and freaking take more gear and do more unhealthy things than the top Olympia Open division.
Yeah, that's true.
You
It's the
know,
individual.
yeah, it's the individual, and you gotta. It's like in business or anything in life. It's like the return on your investment. So you got to see what works for you. Don't just take 10 different things and 9 of them don't do anything but just make you more toxic and, you know, and saturate your receptors
And
so
you don't
they
even
don't
know
work
what's going
anymore.
on. Yeah, you don't even know what's
Right.
happening.
So introduce one thing. Like most of these guys, I see their protocols and they don't look that great and they're taking all kinds of gear. And a lot of them won't. They just have this mental psychological dependency on they think they have to have so much stuff. But if I was to like replace 99% of their gear they're taking with fake gear, they would probably end up looking better.
Because they'd
Looking
be
better and feeling better.
less toxic.
Because I would find out which thing separately works best for them.
Wow.
I
Wow.
would basically take them, just keep them on test because you need to have tests just for overall health and just being men for function, and take them off of everything else and slowly introduce one thing at a time and see how they respond to it. Take it out if it's not effective for what you're actually putting in your body, then you don't need it. If you're making this much gains and you're taking this much masteron or whatever it might be, then it's not really worth taking it. You know what I mean?
It's logical.
So it's the process of elimination. So you can maximize the return on your investment. And just because something doesn't really work for you and you find that out, there's no need to take it, right? But it might work for you 5 years down the road. You're like, shit, I can't believe D-ball works this good. It didn't work that great for me before. Well, see, then why were you going to take it for the last 5 years? It didn't really work for you. Save that shit.
Because there's
So,
all kinds of different factors involved, right? Like,
yeah, how your
probably,
receptors, just your body's always changing. So every year, the protocol might not be the same, you know? So and over so many years, you're going to kind of find out to a certain degree where the kind of the baseline is. You can hit an 85 to 90% on the money. But going for 100%, you might risk it and look like shit. So just play it safe and coast in there about 85 to 90% of your best and be consistent with it. That's what Dexter did. And that one year, Jay slipped, boom,
he took it.
it was right there. It was right there. If you were to try to hit 100% every single year and it went extreme, you might be way off the mark. It might make you look really bad. You might think, shoot, this coach works with a lot of people that look ridiculous. Then you find out this dude's got you taking so much diuretics for so long, but I wanted to hit that 100%. I knew I probably could have placed in the top 5, just kind of coaching myself and knowing what works best for me. I might not like hit that home run like some of these guys nail it. So let's try to hit that home run. Let's get this coach and let him to make the decisions. And all of a sudden, they're super flat or whatever the excuse is, and they don't even make well, they place 8th. You know,
Yeah.
they probably could have made the top 5 if they just went in there and just went kind of moderate and safe. So, and when you do that, when you play it safe and moderate, and you hit, 80% of, you know, your best, you're still in the game and you're learning. But if you're just trying to hit the home run all the time and shove all this shit that your body's trying to like adjust to, it might adjust. Boom! It's like the slot machine in Vegas where all those things cheat, 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 cheat. They got to line up, and boom, you hit 100. How often is that going to be? Right?
Never. Yeah.
Let's just hit 3 of them, and you're going to win a little bit of money each time, and keep pulling that level and hitting 3 of them and winning some money. You might not hit all in a row and win the millions, but guess what? When you don't hit all those in a row, you don't win any money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
They make
and you
sense,
don't
man.
learn, anything. Slowly introduce and just a little bit of something. Like instead of taking a bunch of diuretics, try half a diazide or try this, and it makes you look a little bit better. Be content with it. Okay, now I know. I didn't blow all that time dieting, getting ready for the show, I'm still in the money. I still look good. Maybe my body will still get some more water out if I pose or just do little things. By the time prejudging comes, I'll be good. And some people are surprised. They end up winning, and they're like, "Man, I could have took more directs and been even tighter." But then you're taking the risk because if you just went and hit it 90, 85, 90%, and everyone else try to hit a home run and they all fucked up, you're going to win the show.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense, man. It's just
And that's where the mindset, that's where the problem is. They're so extreme. They want to hit that home run every time. It's like if you look good a week before and you make the weight, if you have a weight in your division, dude, just do what you're doing. There is no protocol. Put the fucking color on. Go into the
coast in.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put the
But
color
people
on.
just cannot do that, bro. They just can't.
They want to do something crazy. Yeah, they want to do.
Because they think, wow, I look incredible now. Wait till I do my protocol. I'm going to look even fucking more sick.
And it
Doesn't
doesn't
happen.
work.
No, maybe it does. You might hit it. But do you want to risk all that time, all the gear you took, all you went through
Yeah.
to do
It's
that?
funny you say that. I did I've done a bunch of podcasts with do you remember Jean-Pierre Fuchs?
Of course.
Yeah, so me and him we're pretty good buddies. He said that's what he did every time. He said he had this Barry DeMay protocol that he got where it was like don't have any salt at all and don't drink water for a week or some stupid thing like that. And he said like he would look so good like the photographers like a week out would be like you're going to be Mr. Olympia, like you look
Yeah.
incredible. And he said his peaking was the worst of anybody in bodybuilding. And he said he didn't have the like maybe the
The
humility.
confidence. The
Well,
confidence.
he didn't the confidence, but he also didn't have the humility to like listen to coaches. Like he had it in his head
Oh,
like
right.
this is what I got to do is the Barry DeMay protocol. And he wouldn't because I guess Joe Weider used to be like, hey, there's this guy Chad
Yeah.
Chad Nichols,
Nicholson. Yeah.
yeah, you should get with him. And he would just blow it off like, and he thought he had all the time in the world. Kind of like what you were talking about that, like that patience game. He said he thought,
Yeah.
oh, I could do it next year. I could do it next year. And then boom, it was over. He blew
Yeah.
his legs out and he never won the Olympia, and he said that he wished if he looked back, he said he wished that he would have been way more serious and like thought he didn't have time like
Yeah.
I got to get it this time. Every year had that mindset. Do you
Right.
feel like you need that? Do you need a competition to be as disciplined as you're talking about? Like you're talking
Yeah.
about being so disciplined. So when are
Yeah.
you competing again, bro?
Uh, Next Olympia.
You're gonna do it
It's going to be in Florida when it comes back to Vegas because I talked to Jake, the owner of Olympia, and it's going to be in Vegas. They just had to fulfill their contract with Florida, the venue they had,
because of
and
the
then
that's where they
once
went.
for COVID, yeah, and then so now they're coming back to Vegas.
So that'll
Um,
be you're talking about 2024.
yeah, so a year and a half,
So in a year and a half,
less than a year and a half, because I think it's in November this year.
yeah.
I think October or November is Olympia.
So what are you gonna do from now till then?
Just take a lot of tren. Just stock
Yeah,
up
hey,
on the trend, bro.
I was best friends, man. I was best friends with Boston Lloyd, bro. He was my best
Yeah,
friend,
dude.
and he said he would take 1,000 milligrams a week, and he said it calmed him down. Obviously, it didn't work out for him, but he was actually a really great guy. I don't know if you knew him, but he was a really good
No.
guy.
Well, yeah, but
It,
people, you don't have to be a scumbag to do what you're doing. You just aren't
yeah,
doing the smartest thing. You know what I mean?
yeah, he
So
was not.
those are two separate things. I know a
I
lot
think
of
he had a mental
knuckleheads.
problem.
Well, obviously, because the science is there that this is not good for you. And he
Yeah,
was smart enough. He knew that. So why would you do that? You know? I mean, a lot of these guys are the same way. It's almost like they think they're too smart, you know, where it's like, well, I know when I have to, my limitations, I can push it to this much,
Yeah.
and it's like the reality is you don't know what you're predisposed to. You don't know, you
Yeah.
know. It's like, and you also live in this culture where you almost don't see that being real extreme because it's just a little bit more extreme than the norm of what you think is the norm in the culture you're in. And that's the thing, it's very easy to get caught up in that culture, you know. See, my culture back when I started competing was just like really good genetics and just being consistent with it, and emphasizing on the genetics you have and being consistent really is what the key was, is the consistency of just being there, showing up every single day, not being
Was it
real extreme.
was Sean Ray the guy that inspired you? Because you said that he's where you got that instinctive training. Like who
I
motivated
didn't
you?
no, I didn't get it from Sean,
Oh,
but
you
Sean
didn't.
did it also. Yeah, I was
Oh,
doing this. I trained like this when I wrestled in college.
really?
I always listened to that little voice in my head. When I would have to do something, like let's say the coach made us do lunges literally for a mile to just get our quads real strong, to shoot. Just a lot of, I mean, it was pretty intense. And I knew it's like, okay, this is good. I'm pushing myself. But there's a certain point where I felt like, well, for my body, the conditioning factor is not going to make that much more of a difference, but I think it's actually going to do me more harm. Where it's going to take away because of the soreness and the fatigue is going to take me out of being able to train for a few days, which I'm going to lose on that end. So I knew how to pace myself. I listened to that little voice. And sometimes
Oh,
I get called a pussy. Come on, Hester, you pussy. You need to finish that. And I'm thinking in my head, that's good. But I know what I need to do for my body, bro. I want to be the best more than you do. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So I would get up and I just run the rest. And he's, oh, come on, Hester, you're a pussy. And I'm thinking, whatever, dude, whatever.
Go ahead and
You
do it.
don't
You're
have a
gonna be
lot of
wrecked.
heart. What?
You're
Right,
like,
because
go
I
ahead.
knew, I knew what was best for me instinctively, you know. So that's just how I've always kind of been. Some people can take it as laziness. I get called that, you know, probably because my personality is really relaxed too. So they just combine that and think I'm just lazy. But I'll tell you, I've been a lot of people that will kind of just laugh. Oh, he doesn't have to train. It's his genetics or whatever. And then I hear them like, lifting heavy in the gym, dropping, making all this like drama. And I'm like, yeah, let's train. And I train with them. And I'm thinking, bro, that's a lot of smoke. No, I didn't. I was expecting a lot more fire. You know what I mean? I said, I just went through your workout. I made half the noise you did. And it was like, I know I'm stronger than you in most of the things we just did. And you definitely didn't push me to make me throw up. Not even close. So it's like, okay, I like my workout better, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, there's certain things I did that I might have not done, which I was glad I trained with them because some things I feel like, I'm not into hack squats. They love going heavy hack squats. All right, I'll do it because this is their workout. They're trying to maybe like invite me because they want to show me what a real workout is. I'm like, whatever, okay, I'll do it. I'm like, I don't really do hacks, but actually that's not bad. Doing that many sets of it because I usually wouldn't feel it. But then I'd wake up and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll reconsider doing a little bit more hacks. So there's always something to it, because you
Yeah.
never know until you kind of try it. Because instinctive training, you have to be very careful, like I'm saying, because then you can just get caught up in like the things that you think is best for your body. But sometimes it's good to start and just do someone else's whole workout and
Just
see.
try it.
Right, right, and it could be motivating too, and especially when it's like the challenge part. Because I've trained with people that think, "Come on, jump in." And it's almost like they're challenging me because they'll see me doing something and they'll see me doing another exercise and they'll kind of laugh. Weren't you just over in that exercise and now you're over here? I'm like, yeah, I wasn't feeling that. So I came over here and they're like, oh, it's kind of like,
Like, what's
it's
that?
different. Right. So
Because they
then I
don't
jump
get
in
it.
their workout. because they think they're fucking destroying it. And I'm like, okay, let's see how you destroy it. I was like, that was it. Okay, you know. The one person though that does make you destroy it, I have to say, is Milos.
Really?
Yeah, he fucking. I think he'll make me throw up.
Like the giant sets? Like the giant
Yeah,
sets?
the giant sets and not letting you have a lot of time getting that blood in there. And I've done that with a few. I used to train with a amazing athlete, Rory Ledermeyer, bodybuilder.
Oh yeah, I
One
know
of the
Rory.
guys that could have been Mr. Olympia, never turned pro. It's really hard to turn pro back in the day because
He's like
the
really
bar
into
was so
God,
high.
right? I think he posts about God like
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day.
now, yeah, yeah. He's always kind of been. He's got more like that. When I knew him, it wasn't really a factor that I knew of that he really talked about. But yeah, he's got kids. He's getting older and stuff, and people have to find what healing and what they think is gonna make them better and keep them out of trouble and just what works for you at the time. And I know guys that get older and they for some reason all of a sudden they want to start going to clubs and shit and they never were that type before. I don't know if it's a midlife crisis thing or whatever, but everyone's got their own kind of thing
Yeah.
that kind of makes them feel like this is what they need at the time. So, but I trained with Rory and I trained with Serge Nubret. You know what Serge Nubret is?
Oh yeah, yeah. I heard
Yeah,
he would
he's
do
the
like
first.
super high
He,
reps, right?
kind of. They would do long workouts,
Yeah.
like 3 hour workouts, bro. And we used to drink a Coca-Cola in during our workouts. And at the
Just to
time, it
stay,
was almost like, yeah.
keep the
And I
carbs
was
in
like,
or the
right, the glycogen and everything. It makes sense now because people kind of do that now. Interim, they call them interim, you know,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
not pre-workout, but interim drinks.
yeah.
Um, Kind of what we were doing with Coca-Cola because it had caffeine in it, had sugar in it. But we would definitely go for a long time, and it wasn't kind of my thing. Um, I used to drive all the way like 2 hours to get because they were training over in Fullerton, like Orange County. I was more in Northern California, but I would drive all the way there and train with them.
Wow.
Um, and I wish I would have stuck with it a little bit longer. And that's where I got some of my posing from too, because their physiques were beautiful, real aesthetic, and the way they pose accentuated that. So that was kind of a